Hey guys, Matt with Jamison's Tractor here. Today I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of having a cab on your tractor. Some of those are very obvious, and some of these that I'm going to say might actually be unexpected, things that you haven't thought through before. So hang tight with me and let's dive in and see if we can't figure out why buying a cab tractor could be the right decision for you. The first thing, obviously, that comes to mind for most people with the cab is going to be heat and air conditioning. And I wrote some of these down so that I could actually remember everything that I was thinking through. And I mean, that's pretty obvious. We have climate control in our cars, in our houses. And I think that that kind of falls under the benefit of it being comfortable. Oftentimes cab tractors will also maybe have a cloth seat instead of a vinyl seat, which a lot of people find to be a little bit more comfortable. The controls might be positioned they have more options. You can position controls up a pillar. Loader joysticks are almost always integrated into the fender or into the cab itself, as opposed to being, loader mounted. So generally speaking, a cab machine is going to have more amenities. It's going to have climate control. This one is outfitted with a Bluetooth radio. So if you are into it, you can listen to music or you can take phone calls hands-free, which could be a big benefit. The other thing with comfort that I find with these is that it keeps you out of the elements. So if it's raining outside, obviously if it's cold or hot, you're protected or you're insulated from those things. But if you're running a snowblower, for example, if you've ever done that, when it's blowing snow, as soon as the wind takes a gust, that snow is coming right back in your face. When you've got a cab, you are protected from things like that. And speaking of protection, I think that's the other, or the next category that I want to talk about. And this is where we might start to get into some things that maybe you haven't thought of. You've got filtration for your air on a cab tractor. So if you are somebody who is prone to allergies, especially things like pollen or things that might get in dust or grass and be released when you're working, you're going to find that on a tractor, especially during the summer months, no matter what you're doing, whether you're bush hogging or mowing or using your box scraper or, pretty much anything, you're going to be kicking up dust and dirt. And some of those are more extreme, like bush hogging, for example. So if you have allergies, a cab goes a long way into making it more usable to where when you get done at the end of the day, you're not totally congested and clogged up. You feel like, you feel good. You feel like you did before you got in and did the job. The other thing is that it will keep you safe from things like bees and hornets. And it usually is there, a couple years period between when I get stung, and I always forget how much it hurts. And when you run over a nest of something, especially when you're on a big tractor, your first inclination is to get away, and that might include you trying to jump off the machine or doing some other unsafe actions that you don't even really want to have to think about. So, when August comes around, September comes around, it's that time where the yellow jackets, they've got their nests in the ground and they're angry and they're ready to come get you. A cab keeps you out of that possibility. It will protect from some small flying objects, like if your cutter kicks up like a small stick or something like that, or if something was thrown by something else. Obviously, big rocks and things like that, those are just going to shatter the glass. So it's not going to offer any kind of a lot of safety protection versus a open unit, but it does offer some in that arena. And then it also is going to insulate you from the sun. You've got a full roof. This one actually has got tint on it, which will help lower the UV exposure that you have. So you've got some protection from the sun, and with the amount of skin cancer going around these days, I can't help but think that that's a really good thing. The next category is productivity, and these may have some unexpected ones too. Almost always when you get a cab tractor, there's extra lighting. This one has 6 additional lights, 2 at the top of the cab on the front and back, and then these turn signals right here. And you can not only get more work done by working later, but it makes it easier to hook up things like your 3-point implements, or maybe lift up your hood and do some maintenance on the tractor without having to have a ton of extra lighting. So additional lighting packages, they make a big difference. And then, going back to maybe some of the comfort, when we tie that into productivity, your motivational level to actually get out and do some work when it's either really hot or really cold is significantly improved. When it's, if there's a storm that's come through and you've got down trees, or maybe a lot of water washed away part of your driveway, and you really need to get out there and fix it, but it's 98 degrees outside, a lot of people will choose to let that go for another week or 2 weeks, or however long it takes for the temperature to cool off. When you've got the cab, you'll be surprised how often that you aren't actually phased by what the temperature is, or what the conditions are, and you're just willing to go out and get the work done. And I think that makes a pretty big difference in productivity. And you're gonna find that on a commercial scale, whether we're talking large ag tractors or skid steers or excavators, most of the time, large companies, when you look at their fleets of machines, they all have cabs, and they've figured out that the productivity level is worth the expenditure that they lay out initially, just in keeping people happy, which looks at, speaks to job retention. It also keeps them working sometimes in the elements when they wouldn't be, and keeps them safe sometimes from things that a cab or without the cab they would not be safe from. And speaking of safety, that's the last thing that I've got in terms of benefits. Most cabs you're going to see, this has a 4-post ROPS system. So on a standard open machine, you've got the rollover protection system on the back, and that's a 2-post system. Well, you can see that at each pillar, or at each corner, there's a metal pillar that goes up on this. And if you were to roll this machine, you have added protection here. You also have added protection from falling objects, which you wouldn't have on a 2-post structure. Even if you have a canopy on a 2-post structure, something heavy falls, it's just gonna kind of push that canopy down onto you. So, and the last thing, and I think this might be the most unexpected thing, and maybe one of the most important things, is your fatigue level, the difference between having operated a cab at the end of the day versus having operated a open station. So if you think about everything that we've talked about, the comfort, the protection from dust, bees, small objects, sun, the productivity increase, it typically means that you're going to be working faster and you're going to feel significantly more refreshed when you get done versus the open station. And not only does that make it better for whatever it is that you've got to do after that activity, whether it's going out to dinner or continuing to work or spending time with your family, whatever that is, you've got more energy left for that. The other thing about that is, because you've got more energy at the end of that activity or the end of the job that you're doing with your tractor, I know I tend to make better decisions. And when you're operating a piece of machinery, that can be a pretty significant impact, where maybe you're tired, you're really fatigued, you've been working an open station tractor all day, and you cut a corner on something that you wouldn't normally do, but you decide, hey, you know what, I don't normally go down this ditch, but I'm exhausted, I'm just going to do it. And in an instant, you roll your tractor. And it's just because you're not thinking the same way, because you're tired, and we all get like that. And so the benefit, for me, the thing that kind of sells it the most is the difference in your fatigue level at the end after operating the cab versus the open station. I think it's a pretty big safety improvement when you think of it like that. And for me, a lot of times that justifies the added cost. And that kind of brings us to our cons, which I really don't have many. Number one, it can change the center of gravity on a tractor. So if you're operating on really steep slopes and you've got a cab, you have additional weight above the center of gravity line, and you have to be extra careful with that. You might look at wheel spacers, or if you've got convertible rims, widening your stance out, looking at tire fill or wheel weights, things like that, to help offset that. If you have a lot of woods or wooded areas around, and you really are unwilling to go around with a pole saw and cut down things that could damage your cab, you probably will end up breaking your glass at some point. You do have to be intentional about where you take the tractor, and kind of pre-plan, trails, and go through, at the beginning of each season and cut low-hanging branches that are going to be rubbing up against the glass. Because the last thing you want to do is bust your glass out in the middle of the job, have to stop, or keep going with busted glass. It's just no fun. Same is kind of true for if you put a canopy on your tractor, though. You have to be intentional, because you will rip that canopy off in a heartbeat when you're not thinking about it. And then the last, and I think the thing that prohibits people from buying the cab, is the added cost. Cabs can be, probably starting at $5,000 to $6,000 more expensive than the open station equivalent, and sometimes it's more than that, depending on the brand or the size of the machine. But having said that, yes, it does cost more up front, but you do retain the resale value of having the cab. And so when you go to sell your machine, if you go to sell your machine, it's not like you've spent money that you can't get back. So when you think of it like that, if you are able to spend the extra money on a cab tractor, I think it makes a lot of sense. Is it an absolute necessity for you if you're not in a commercial production? Probably not. But when you think of everything that we've just talked through, the benefits, the safety, I think it should give you something to think through if you haven't been thinking about getting a cab tractor. Whether you decide to or not, it's going to vary. It could be right, it could not be right. You might be unable to afford it, or maybe you're not going to be on your tractor very much and it just doesn't make sense. But if you do plan to be on your tractor a lot, and you are able to swing the extra dollars, I would highly recommend taking a look at a cab tractor. Just like this Coyote, this is a great machine, and you can get this machine lightly used for probably a very similar price that you could get a lightly used open station, John Deere 3033R, right? So, if you're savvy, if you're paying attention, if you've got good Coyote dealers in the area, this is an excellent tractor. And you can, get into an equivalent Coyote with a cab, maybe compared to the same money for a John Deere that doesn't have one. So something to think about for sure. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it is helpful. That is the goal here, is to help people make better buying decisions. If we can help you make a buying decision, or if if you're looking at buying a tractor and you just don't know where to start, please reach out to us. We would love to help you. You can get on our website, jamesonstractor.com. You can call us at 615-200-0703, or you can email me directly at matt@jamesonstractor.com. Thanks again. Have a blessed day.